In May, we have the Oblivion remaster coming from Virtuous, and it was a disaster on PC for weeks. Fast forward to June, we had Mind's Eye coming from creative genius Leslie Benzies, and that was a disaster in so many different ways. But performance was one of the notable problems with the game. Wu Chang Fallen Feathers came in July, and yet another experience with PC performance problems. Echoes of the End came in August from Konami, and some of the headlines saying it was some of the worst stuttering we've seen lately on PC. And just a number of weeks ago, Mafia the Old Country had viral videos showing tons of gameplay stutters, which yes, sparked a heated debate among gamers about Unreal Engine. And then the reason why we made a recent video on this channel about Unreal Engine 5 was sparked by this game, Metal Gear Solid Delta, in which tons of viral videos on PC showed it almost nearly unplayable. And yes, on other platforms like the PlayStation 5 Pro, it was said the performance was worse than the PS5. That is just truly insane. And yes, of all these games, this isn't going to be surprising. They all run on Unreal Engine 5, which has been a mess of an engine this console age. And really, it feels split. Like, it feels like every once in a while we'll get a good solid launch with this engine, but more often than not, it's just another disaster. And of all these games we just went over, these are all some of the notable Unreal Engine 5 games that released just in the last 4 to 5 months, and almost every single one of them was marred by just tremendous performance issues. And it's almost the same exact issues, which yes, has put, Unreal Engine 5 and Epic Games, who, they develop all of that, has put them in a negative light. And here we are yet again. I feel like a broken record because it just keeps on happening. The last 2 years are littered with UE5 launches that looked incredible in marketing only to ship broken. Unreal Engine 5 is not a bad engine. It is, without a question, one of the most advanced tool sets ever built for real-time graphics. But the industry's dependence on it is creating a fragile ecosystem. One where homogenized aesthetics, broken performance, and middleware complacency are the norm. Borderlands 4 has launched, and it's unoptimized and horrible. It falls to a mixed Steam rating at launch as reviews hammer poor PC performance. And yeah, Borderlands 4 is climbing the Steam charts, though performance issues are raining on the parade. And yeah, look, it has been met to overall, the reviews are mostly positive. 97% of critics recommending the experience, 85%. That is a lot better of a sentiment compared to what we saw with Borderlands 3. And it looks like in many different ways, this is an improvement over the last experience. All of that is good news, except for the fact that a lot of players cannot play this with a smooth experience without having to do tons of hurdles. And these are just some of the things that people are saying on Steam right now. None of my friends can get the game to start past main menu. When you quit and restart, it doesn't close the original instance and it still uses full memory. It doesn't matter how good the game is. AAA devs deserve low reviews on their games until they learn to release working titles. Indie devs release working games, but multi-million-dollar companies can't. Pathetic. And that is the big thing with Unreal Engine 5. A lot of the blame is thrown on that engine. We're going to go over a lot about that, but it's just this environment, this AAA games industry, there isn't a prioritization on optimization these days. It's always, we'll launch it broken and we'll fix it later on. That mentality is destroying this industry. Another person saying Stutterland 4 review, an unholy trio of pricing, UE5 and Denuvo. I've been a Borderlands fan for years. The chaos, the humor, the endless loot grind. It's always been about fun first, never too serious. But Borderlands 4, it feels like Gearbox got dazzled by Unreal Engine 5, slapped on a $70 price tag, and forgot the part where the game is supposed to actually run. Having played for over an hour, I simply cannot recommend the game. There was multiple issues I saw as I was playing, and I think I need to be addressed. First, the technical issues. I have a 7900 graphics card, and on max settings with frame gen on, I was only getting around 90 FPS, which I think is crazy. Again, if you have a high-end rig and you're getting bare minimum FPS, that's just unacceptable. And that points to there being an optimization issue with the development of this experience. And, Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford certainly has a lot to say about all of that. Another person saying terrible optimization, another UE5 casualty, not worth buying in its current state unless you have a NASA PC. Story and gameplay is fun, fixed stuttering, and I changed my review. Terrible optimization, worst I've seen. Turn it down to low graphics presents, and it couldn't couldn't hit 60 FPS, even with FSR upscaling on my RX 6900 XT. And yeah, right now it has a mixed rating based on like around 10,000 reviews. It's right now sitting around 60%, and a lot of the criticism is just pointed at the fact that a lot of players can't get this game running properly. And in the year of 2025, the big year of 2025, that is so fucking unacceptable, especially with the fact they're charging a premium at $70. And another thing to note from these reviews is the fact that even some of the positive ones are really negative. Can we stop releasing games that are broken? Another individual down here, a massive warning saying, if you want above 60 FPS 1440p and don't have at least a 3080, I would not buy the game. So far the story and gameplay are actually really fun, but it really is frustrating when even me with a 4070 Ti Super can barely get 60 FPS with upscaling. And yeah, more people saying reviews about poor performance, and it's a shame that the game was released with such bad optimization. And look, I think Tim Sweeney was absolutely on point with what he said. I think especially in the past there has been good reason to throw some of the aim, some of the criticism at Epic Games for Unreal Engine 5, but I think more often than not, a lot of the optimization that we're seeing from this industry, they just don't care about. And that's what Sweeney said recently about Unreal Engine 5 performance problems. He said they really aren't about the engine, they're about when developers choose to optimize. And specifically, the remark he said, which I think is pinpoint accurate now, the main cause is the order of development. Many studios build for top-tier hardware first and leave optimization and low-spec testing for the end. Ideally, optimization should begin early before full content build-out. We're doing two things, and this is what he's talking about Epic Games right now, efforts that we probably won't see for a while with, experiences to come in the future. We're doing two things: strengthening engine support with more automated optimization across devices and expanding developer education so optimize early becomes standard practice. That should be standard practice. Jesus. If needed, our engineers can step in. It does feel like optimization has become an afterthought in recent years. You don't say, it's not just Unreal Engine. So many of these different experiences, Monster Hunter Wilds earlier this year, I think that uses the Capcom engine or the RE engine or something. But yeah, that was an absolute disaster as well. This industry is just known for not caring about this type of stuff. But yeah, with tools like DLSS and FSR, which use resolution scaling and frame generation, often used to mask performance issues rather than solve them, which is exactly what is happening with Borderlands 4 right now, and the CEO of Gearbox is pushing this hard. Game complexity is much higher than 10 years ago, so it's hard to solve purely at the engine level. Engine makers and game teams need to collaborate. We're also bringing Fortnite optimization learnings into Unreal Engine, so titles run better on low-spec PCs. And that was, again, Tim Sweeney's response to the criticism thrown at Unreal Engine. This was around the time, just about a week or two ago, when Metal Gear Solid Delta was being hit with a lot of that criticism. But yeah, look, the pre-release marketing for Borderlands 4, I think was actually pretty good for the most part. Like some of the previews that came about, they were saying Borderlands 4 wants you to forget Borderlands 3 ever happened. Music to my ears. That actually got me instantly excited. Maybe this is going to be worth my time and money. And then we have the sweatiest gaming executive alive. That is Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford, who can be compared to really a lolcow in this industry, or YouTubers and such. He acts like one. He's run into so many different incidents over the years. I'm surprised that 2K Games still lets him market these games. Like just a number of months ago, he was defending the possibility of charging $80 for Borderlands 4, saying real fans will pay up. Mass outrage then ensued, and his response was, well, I don't set the prices. The guy just does not know what to say at the right time. And look, it's not like this is the first incident over the years. We had Alien Colonial Marines, the disappointment, the outrage, the false advertising, and his piss poor responses to the criticism with them lying about the game. There was the USB restaurant incident in which he left behind a USB drive with company secrets and apparently barely legal adult content. Just absolutely embarrassing. He also compared the Borderlands movie to the Beatles and a bunch of other stuff, as well as stiffing Borderlands 3 devs on promised bonuses. And then yeah, he has notable poorly aged remarks about how Steam was going to die and Epic Games Store was going to flourish. That never happened. So Randy Pitchford, not exactly the brightest soul in the gaming industry. And really where I got worried about Borderlands 4 was some of those final previews. While a lot of them were positive, saying the things I wanted to hear, I also started to see that very thing that I see with so many Unreal Engine 5 games, and it's the lack of optimization. And Randy Pitchford obviously had a response to this criticism. He said, I may be conflating recommended specs with required specs. 2K QA collaborating with our engineering team at Gearbox sets the standard, and 2K QA reports indicate that they are able to achieve 60 FPS average with minimum spec PC on typically medium settings. Different PC configurations will vary. HDD versus SDD is also a factor for the hitching, and yes, Day 1 patch has some key improvements and optimizations. I just want everybody to have realistic expectations for performance. This is a big open AAA game, and lower end and older hardware may not perform as well as high-end modern PCs. I asked for some assets to be generated to show a range of specifications and how they perform with different settings to help users decide. We're confident in the game's performance and optimization, especially given what the software is doing under the hood. That was his, I guess you could say, mini damage control that happened about a week or so ago before launch, and that instantly got me worried, like, oh no, here we go with Borderlands 4 again. And then we had Conan O'Brien. He held his own little Clueless Gamer segment. I actually really like that stuff. And for the first time with that show, the game crashed on him. This is the first time this has ever happened to him. And that's where I was like, oh no, here we are going. This is exactly what's going to happen. It's just going to be like the last number of Unreal Engine 5 launches. And guess what? It is exactly that. And here we have streamers like having to do all kinds of different configurations with their, massively expensive rigs just to get to the game running how it should. A lot of Borderlands 4 complaints are people struggling to maintain at least 60 FPS despite having decent PCs, and Shroud saying,
yeah, it runs at 100 FPS. The game runs at 100 FPS with, this is the best settings I could find. I couldn't find any better settings. So I'm not on like all ultra and all high. This is the best I could do, because once I started to get all ultra and all high, I had about 70, which is still above 60.
But again, I think it really needs to be pointed out, these guys have the best of the best rigs, and they're barely getting what I consider performance that's acceptable with a AAA game. Again, this experience should be running flawlessly, especially with some of the advertising that has been put out, about configurations, what they should be running at. Another user saying, Borderlands performance summary in 2 minutes, native resolution, badass settings, the game runs bad, upscaling performance modes, badass settings, the game barely manages to hit 60 FPS, frame gens turned on, and now you have 100 FPS. Now, what does that remind you of? Exactly what Tim Sweeney was pointing out, and the fact that with tools like DLSS and FSR, which use resolution scaling and frame generation, they often are used to mask performance issues rather than solve them. And that is seemingly exactly what is happening here with Borderlands 4. But as Nick Tech, another YouTube creator, says, some people will turn all these settings on and be happy with it, but in my honest opinion, these are used as crutches to make the game look as if it's performing good. Borderlands 4 has a certain art style that doesn't look like it needs these kind of settings to be turned on to play at a high frame rate, but sadly it does. And you can defend this if you want, but the future of gaming looks bleak. Using this tech to not optimize the games further will just result in input latency increased, as every game will be delivered with frame gen turned on in the dev's mind. And another tweet he pointed out, Borderlands 4 doesn't have ray trace reflections, yet demands the highest end hardware to run properly. At first I thought recent GPUs struggle with this game due to ray tracing, but it's clear they didn't use ray tracing. And then another post coming from Beyond FPS saying, and one last thing about Borderlands 4, because I'm already seeing the classic another bad PC port narrative nonsense, it looks like ass on PC and still delivers a lower frame rate, not a consistent 60 FPS, which I really thought was going to be the norm this generation, but unfortunately that is not the case. Another individual, this being another YouTube creator, Mischief, saying, I played about 7 hours of Borderlands 4 and so far it's everything I wanted, which makes the fact I cannot recommend it at all even crazier. And again, it's the performance. The performance on PC is obviously ridiculous, but console players aren't safe here either. As Synth Potato, another creator, pointed out, instead of optimizing the game, Gearbox simply lowered the FOV so far that you were unironically permanently stuck with Halo 5 sight aiming FOV on console, and it looks horrible. It does. It looks horrendous. And he points out another post to show how disgusting and motion sickness induced the FOV on consoles is. Here's the default on PC versus low settings available on PC. Believe it or not, the console version is reportedly even lower than this. You are in essence perpetually aiming down sights on PS5, Xbox Series X. And yeah, it does not look good enough. And again, it just points to the fact that optimization was not a priority at Gearbox, unfortunately, with the development of this game. But Randy Pitchford has a lot of responses. In recent days, right before launch, he said the day one patch does a lot. It didn't. That said, the expectation for using a below min-spec machine should be that the game is unplayable, that the game runs at all on your system is a miracle. It's a big, bold, new, seamless world, and I'm sorry to say that older hardware may not provide buttery smooth performance for the latest gen AAA games, as has always been the case since the dawn of PC gaming. My guy, there is a number of experiences that you can run still on a toaster these days. Here he has a video showing from a YouTuber, if you're playing Borderlands 4 on PC and want to boost your performance, this YouTube creator shared his settings tips when he was able to jump from 90 to 160 FPS. Spoiler alert, he used frame generation. And yeah, people commented below saying, Randy, I mean this with the best intentions. You're seriously disconnected from what actual gamers want. You also don't seem to understand how this is unacceptable behavior. Just promise to optimize your games. Frame gen should absolutely not be the answer. And yeah, many other people criticizing this down below. You should not need frame gen for a game that with this art style. Using frame gen, which requires a 40 series, and as somebody with a 3080 Ti, I'm screwed on that. This person also has a 3080. It's bad when frame gen has to be used to optimize a game that should have been optimized well. Not a good look, bro. And look, Nick Tech also points out a great small tip I always give if you're playing Borderlands 4 on PC is to buy a $2,000 GPU, then turn on DLSS to performance mode, turn on frame gen, and you'll be going from 90 to 160 FPS. He's making fun of Gearbox and Randy Pitchford. Again, all these configurations you have to get to this game running solidly well. And look, Randy had a lot more to say in response to the criticism. This was just hours ago. He said, we had some CS work prove that through settings tweaks, only being able to climb up to 120 FPS plus on PC in Borderlands 4 with 3 and 4-year-old hardware. Your mileage may vary, but please consider using the tools available to you to tune your own balance between FPS, resolution, and graphic features. But you don't have to wait for a patch to get nice frame rate with Borderlands 4. We'll do more to share tips and guidance also. And somebody responded saying, what 3 and 4-year-old hardware, what were on the specs? Randy says, Borderlands 4 is a premium game made for premium gamers. Yeah, if you don't have that high-end rig, you're fucked. That's pretty much what Randy saying, sorry, we're not making a game for you. Just as Borderlands 4 cannot run on a PlayStation 4, it cannot be expected to run on too old PC hardware. Look, the PlayStation 4 is very old. There's a lot of PCs in the middle that have better hardware than the PS4 that cannot run this game at all. Again, if you're relying on frame generation, I just think that's totally unacceptable right now. And he says, unlike on PlayStation and Xbox, we cannot prevent a PC player with suboptimal hardware for the game trying to play it. So some try and get mad, and some have actual issues we need to fix. He goes on to say, this is not a game made to run on 10-year-old PCs. It seems like 3 to 4-year-old PCs, you're going to have issues too, but let's just concentrate on the 10-year-old PCs. This game uses the full capabilities of modern bus, CPU, and GPU. If you're trying to drive a monster truck with a leaf blower's motor, you're going to be disappointed. That's a stupid analogy in this situation. If you discover the system can't run the game well by accident or wishful thinking and or don't want to try to mess with the settings to make things good enough, please use the refund feature on Steam, and it seems like a number of players are going that route. But look, Randy wasn't done. This thread, he had a lot to say about that. We already went over this tweet, but he was giving all kinds of tips and stuff. Look, this is just so fucking insane, so unacceptable with everything you have to do just to get the game running in an acceptable manner. If you're running Windows 10, try enabling hardware scheduling using your graphics driver settings. Another one, I play with volumetric fog turned off. I like the performance boost. If you have DLSS option, use it. There's a hardware ray tracing lighting setting that you can also toggle to earn some frames. I know a lot of you are dead set on playing at 4K with ultra max settings and using 2 or 3-year-old hardware. You do you, but Borderlands 4 and Unreal Engine 5 are doing a lot, and for me, that trade-off for frames isn't worth it. Look, this is just so unacceptable, the way that he's talking about this. I mean, soon he's going to be tweeting out the mods that actually make this game run well. Like, look, Bethesda has been criticized with the fact that modders have to fix the game. I think, Gearbox should be criticized the same way here, with all of the, extra work that you have to do to run this game in a functional state. And yeah, people pointing out, come on, man, this is just copium. I'm playing on an overclocked 5090, 9800, 400 at 4K. I almost have the most expensive computer that you can buy commercially. I cannot crack 120 FPS without frame gen. And again, I totally disagree with this right now, and that is the route that Randy Pitchford is going. And it is worth highlighting that people are starting to get under Randy's skin, because he replied to one individual that said, stop relying on AI upscale. He said, code your own engine and show us how it's done, please. We will be your customer when you pull it off. The people doing it now are clearly dumb and don't know what they're doing, and all the support and recommendations and code and architecture from the world's greatest hardware companies and tech companies working with the world's greatest real-time graphics engine coders don't know what you seem to know / sarcasm. And that's an ignorant response, considering he was, just a couple of days ago saying, oh no, there's not going to be that many issues, it's just those older systems. That's clearly not the case, and there's clearly been, even from the modding community, some massive improvements made from the community. Randy Pitchford's trying to deflect a lot of the criticism that they're receiving, and at the same time we are seeing individuals like Tim Sweeney of Epic Games saying it's not the engine's fault, it's developers not prioritizing optimization. Fortunately though, patches are coming, and look, it's probably going to be much better in the weeks to come, and so far one of the patches that have been released, I think just the other day, seems like performance did see a boost. That's the good thing. And yeah, we are hoping you're having a blast. Today we're releasing a new update to help improve stability, and yes, FOV, they're working on that. That seems to be something that's in development, but again, that could be weeks, maybe even months until they get around to that. And Borderlands 4 is yet another example of an Unreal Engine 5 game that is unplayable at launch, and the next week or so, maybe it improves, and I really do hope it does. But the conversation surrounding Unreal Engine 5 games being massive disappointments and not worth it on launch day for that premium price tag continues on, and Borderlands 4 is yet another example of this industry not caring about optimization. And this isn't an issue just linked to Unreal Engine 5. This console generation, this industry just does not care about this. I hope people understand it is a deliberate choice by these studios, by these publishers, to launch these games in these states. They know how it runs, they just don't care. They do not respect your dollar or you as a player. And that is because there's a mentality, a broken mentality that will fix it later. And my god, is it getting annoying. Anyway, what do you make of Borderlands 4? Are you enjoying the game? Are there performance issues you're running into? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.